Alright, so if you are fat and you are struggling with appetite control and overeating, then this video is for you because I'm going to teach you why this is happening, the root cause of that, and how to fix it and reverse it, alright? And this involves nothing to do with Ozempic or other like appetite suppressing drugs because they don't fix the root cause, they just cover up the symptom. You overeating, you never feeling hungry, never feeling full, always feeling like you need to eat more food. That's a symptom of a deeper problem in your body that needs to be fixed and addressed properly. Not covered up by injecting drugs to affect your endocrine system to make you stop feeling as hungry, alright? That's not going to fix anything. Alright, that's why Ozempic doesn't even really work. People stay fat and they get even fatter when they come off, alright? So, what you've got to understand is that the reason all of this has come about is really due to one main key factor. And it's not what you think. There are 3 types of fatty acids in our diet. First one is saturated fat. The second one is monounsaturated fat. And the third one is polyunsaturated fat. Now, the difference between these fats is, first of all, saturated fat is more dense. Look at coconut oil or butter. It is solid at room temperature. It's more dense and it's more stable. Monounsaturated fat is like the fat in fish, oily fish, like sardines, for example, or in avocado oil, and in olive oil, and in nuts as well. That's monounsaturated fat, alright? This is less stable, but it's not too unstable because it has one unsaturated bond. That's why it's called monounsaturated. And polyunsaturated, well, polyunsaturated is unstable, okay? This is like omega-3, omega-6, and omega-9. And there's others as well. So the only for human evolution, we have evolved to eat only saturated and monounsaturated fat, alright? From meat, eggs, fish, nuts. Those foods, dairy, have got high amounts of saturated and monounsaturated fat, okay? That's what we were evolved for. And the only time we were consuming polyunsaturated fat was omega-3 from fish and seafood, and a tiny amount from like nuts, but that's ALA, which is a different type. So anyway, that is what we were evolved for. Tiny amounts of polyunsaturated fat, moderate amounts of mono, and moderate amounts of saturated. Now, these days, well, we have this thing called vegetable oil or seed oils, which are taken from certain seeds and plants, and it is full of different types of polyunsaturated fat. Some of it is omega-3, but most of it is like omega-6, omega-9, and we were not evolved to consume any of this, really. Like basically none, never. We were never consuming these types of fat, okay? Now, it's in everything. Alright, so how do I explain this to you? If you go to any McDonald's, any fast food, everything is cooked in seed oils. If you look at the ingredients for the sauce, like McDonald's tomato sauce, it's literally like canola oil and high fructose corn syrup, plus a little bit of tomato essence or something, and that's the sauce. It's mostly seed oils. It's mostly oil, okay? And sugar and stuff. Same with the mayonnaise. I worked at a cafe restaurant, and I actually still work at a cafe restaurant, and they would use huge amounts of aioli, and the aioli had the ingredients. It was 60% canola oil. Now, traditional mayonnaise and aioli was made from egg yolks, okay? Which is obviously healthy and natural. But now they're making it out of canola oil, which is not healthy and it's not natural, okay? And it's 60%. So every time that you eat this aioli, you're consuming ridiculous amounts of polyunsaturated fat. And the problem with these is that the fat naturally accumulates in your cells, okay? And what does that mean? Basically, hang on, I'll go back to the restaurant thing. They cooked all the meat, all the fish. When they deep fry fish, chips, it's deep fried in vegetable oil, okay? Or canola oil. They used to buy huge things of oil and you have to tip it into the thing for them to deep fry it. I've worked at KFC once and they used to not change the oil for 1 month at a time. They would keep the same oil in the thing, frying the chips, frying the chicken. Like, it's ridiculous. And like I said, these are not stable. So when you heat these oils, they break down, which they turn into toxic compounds. That's the first problem. And then second of all, when you consume them, they accumulate in your cells, alright? And so I'm going to get to that. But also, in this restaurant, which was cooking like healthy food, like fish and chips isn't necessarily healthy, but like, you know, healthy burgers or whatever. But everything was cooked in like seed oils, vegetable oil. Alright? The fried eggs. Eggs are healthy, cooked in vegetable oil. The bacon, vegetable, it's all grilled in the same burnt fucking vegetable oil. This is not good, alright? So, even the muffins, I've made muffins at my cafe, right? That's part of my job. The ingredients for the muffins, the savory muffins, is flour, vegetable oil, milk, eggs, and like the flavoring. And then you bake them. But the thing is, for about 12 muffins, to make 12 muffins, they use like half a liter of vegetable oil. Either, I think it's 340 mils, or one of the recipes is half a liter. So, that is a lot of vegetable oil. And just for 12 muffins, if you buy one muffin, you're getting like a good amount of these polyunsaturated fats in them. Alright? So, don't buy anything like that. Always buy your own food. That's a key point. Alright? But anyway, enough with that. You've eaten a good amount of this food your whole life. Maybe you even cook in seed oils at your home. Or your family does, like my family does. I don't like it. But I try to avoid that myself, alright? So, now that we understand you've eaten all this polyunsaturated fat, which you've not evolved to consume, these fats accumulate in your cell membrane, because every single cell, like in every part of your body, has got a membrane, alright? Well, what do you think that's made of? It's made of fat and cholesterol, naturally. Now, the different types of fat that you're eating will affect the composition of these fats in the membrane. And they affect the mitochondrial membrane. So your mitochondria obviously creates the energy in every cell in your body. It has a membrane too, and it's made of the same thing. Alright? When you eat these fats, they accumulate in every cell in your body. Not just your fat cells, okay? Of course they do too in your fat cells. The membrane for your fat cells accumulates these unsaturated fats, polyunsaturated fats, as well as the actual lipids in them consist of polyunsaturated fats. So you eat this stuff and it starts getting stored in every single part of your body. Now, why would this be a problem? Well, remember how I told you that they're not stable and that they're more liquid, you know, because vegetable oil is like really runny at room temperature, whereas butter is solid at room temperature and coconut oil is solid. But vegetable oil is always like, you could put it in a fridge and it will still be runny, okay, because it's not saturated, okay? it's less dense, and it is less stable. This means that when it accumulates in your mitochondria, in the membrane, basically your mitochondria has this thing called the electron transport chain. That's how you make ATP. Electrons have to like move through this thing. When you have unstable membranes, basically you leak electrons. It's called electron leak. Now, it's not like it's going to kill you. Well, with enough time, eventually it will. But, like, the problem is you're going to produce slightly less ATP. Less and less ATP. The less stable the membrane is, less and less ATP, because it takes more oxygen to produce the same amount of ATP, and it takes more glucose and so on, because you're leaking electrons while your mitochondria is trying to make energy, alright? So this goes on 24/7, and it is a problem because it means your body is producing less cellular energy, okay? Now, not to mention this, but also your cellular membrane, where all of the hormones interact, they basically, they also get less stable, so more permeable. Now, essentially, where I'm going with this is it causes insulin resistance. Insulin resistance, when you accumulate these polyunsaturated fats, it leads to metabolic dysfunction. Metabolic dysfunction is your mitochondria not working properly, alright? Because that's your metabolism. That's where your energy is being made, and it's leaking electrons. This essentially leads to insulin resistance. And insulin is a hormone that tells your cells to store glucose. The cells stop responding to insulin properly. They become resistant to the action of insulin. So every time you eat carbs and you raise your insulin, the cells stop absorbing it properly because they're not producing, the mitochondria isn't working properly. So they stop absorbing glucose the same. And what this does is it raises your baseline insulin, because your blood sugar isn't getting stored in your muscle cells, your liver, in your brain, in your pretty much everywhere, but especially your muscle and liver. That's where glycogen goes. You're not storing the glucose properly. So now it's floating around in your blood all the time. You have hyperglycemia, essentially. But really what this causes is hyperinsulinemia, which means your insulin is elevated constantly. Your fasting insulin is high. That's insulin resistance. That's a telltale sign of insulin resistance. What this means is, well, when insulin is constantly elevated, it actually... Hang on. I'll tell you. I've got notes on this. So, insulin resistance, so when your insulin's constantly elevated more than it should be, which is caused by mitochondrial dysfunction, stimulates the SOCS3 and the PTP1B pathways in your hypothalamus cells, your brain cells in your hypothalamus. Your hypothalamus responds to a hormone called leptin. Leptin is released by your fat cells when you've eaten enough food. It says, we're full now. So this is literally the secret to feeling full is leptin, essentially. This is the signal to your brain to stop eating. Leptin, it basically causes leptin resistance. So your body still produces leptin, but your brain stops listening because you have mitochondrial dysfunction and you've got hyperinsulinemia. You've got insulin resistance, which has caused leptin resistance. So now when you eat food, your brain stops listening to the signal that tells you to stop eating. Okay? Because when it's always elevated like that, it stimulates those pathways in your hypothalamus, okay? So this means you no longer feel full after eating food. That is right there. That is why you stop feeling full, because your body is full of these unsaturated, polyunsaturated fat that's weakening your mitochondrial membrane and your cellular membrane. In every cell in your body, your cells stop responding to insulin, so they stop absorbing the glucose. Now your pancreas has to produce more insulin all the time in order to try to store it. And you know what's worse? When you have insulin resistance, there is only one cell that actually gets the opposite effect. One cell starts absorbing all of the excess glucose in your bloodstream. That's your adipocytes, your fat cells. They start to absorb all of the sugar because they become sensitized to insulin in this environment, because there's no other choice. Your body has to store the glucose. It can't just go in your bloodstream at super high levels. It has to be stored, so it gets stored in your fat cells. Because when the membrane in your fat cells is loaded with unsaturated, unstable fat, it makes the insulin receptor more active. Like, it basically makes it more permeable, so glucose transports much easier across the membrane, which means you absorb more glucose in your fat cells. That, my friend, is the problem. It is mitochondrial dysfunction. It makes you become fat, alright? Because I don't know how fat you are, but if you're like over 120 kilos or something, which is like 250 pounds, if you're over that, there's no way that you don't have insulin resistance. Anyone who's genuinely fat, like overweight or obese, more than, like, say if you're a man, if you're more than like 30% body fat, I swear that is not possible without insulin resistance and excessive amounts of polyunsaturated fat in your cells. It's not possible. It literally isn't possible, because your fat cells will not absorb that much glucose, and your muscle cells would normally absorb that. If you have insulin, if you're sensitive to insulin, if you're high insulin sensitivity, which is a good thing, it means all of your cells, your liver, your muscles, are absorbing glucose well, then you'd be functioning properly, right? The problem here is if you do exercise and stuff, yes, that will technically increase your insulin sensitivity in your muscles, but the problem is that alone can't get rid of those polyunsaturated fat. So this is why exercise doesn't work. Like cardio, for example, it doesn't really work for fat people who actually need to lose fat. It doesn't work for them. In fact, when you have this, your body, because you're producing less cellular energy because of the mitochondrial dysfunction, you stop using, your body starts thinking that there's not enough energy because you're making less energy. So it's like, shit, there's no energy. So your T3, your thyroid hormone, which regulates energy consumption in your body, that starts going down. People with insulin resistance and metabolic dysfunction actually use way less calories per day than what, like, your daily expenditure, you know those calculators that you use for calorie expenditure? They're wrong, because that assumes a healthy person with healthy metabolic function. Like, say you're 70 kilos and you're 5'10", you use 2,200 calories a day or something. That's what it would say. But the thing is, if you have metabolic resistance, insulin resistance and metabolic dysfunction, your body lowers the amount of energy it uses because your body thinks it's starving because it's not producing enough energy in the cell. That's true. Alright? So they have lower energy expenditure. And even if they go into a calorie deficit, say they think, oh yeah, I'm going to do a 300 calorie deficit. They go into this deficit of 300 calories. And the thing is, they're actually not even in a deficit. For fuck's sake. They're literally not even using that much energy. So they're still storing, like, this is why in my other videos I've preached that calories don't matter. This is why they don't matter, because there's so many other nuanced factors with fat loss that aren't addressed by mainstream media, by these fitness influencers. I don't know. Is it because they don't know about it, or is it because they just don't want you to know about it? Because they make shit tons of money by telling you that you just need to do cardio and do a calorie deficit and you're going to lose heaps of weight. It's bullshit. It's fucking bullshit. You will not lose weight if you just keep doing this stupid shit. Like, I just explained to you why your appetite is so high and you never feel full. It's because of this. They don't tell you that. They just say, you just need to, track your calories, bro. If you tracked it, you wouldn't eat so much. No, bro. The other thing I would like to add is you probably eat a lot of carbs, a lot of sugar, a lot of grains or whatever. And you got to understand, these are digested pretty damn quickly by your body. You don't really get full from eating sugar. Believe me, you can eat ridiculous amounts of sugar and it's absorbed so quickly in your body that you'll never feel full. So the thing I'd like to add is that you should eat more protein and fat. I know lots of people tell you don't eat too much fat or whatever. That's bullshit. You need to eat fat. It's really important for your hormones, for your health in general. But make sure that it's saturated and monounsaturated fat, alright? That way, you will feel full, because fat is actually more filling than protein. But they're both quite filling. So that'll help you, but the thing is, you still have leptin resistance. So your brain will still think that it's not full yet. So it's going to be hard, but you've got to get rid of these fatty acids from your body. And I'm afraid it's not going to be as simple as just reducing your calorie intake and just stop eating seed oils. That sounds pretty good, but the thing is, it's going to take forever, because it would take you 5 years at least for you to actually lose all of these polyunsaturated fats from your body. Okay? So, but there is a way. The way that you would do this, to do this within a year, is by fasting. Alright? And this is the thing I talk about in all of my videos, but it's because it's true. You can't burn body fat unless you're fasted, alright? Because of insulin. Insulin inhibits fat burning so strongly that it would take you, if you ate one meal with moderate carbs, like rice, say rice and chicken or something, it would take you another 4 hours before your body can burn fat, because insulin is the strongest inhibitor of HSL, hormone sensitive lipase. So basically, insulin inhibits fat burning. Hormone sensitive lipase is the enzyme that actually breaks down fatty acids in your fat cells. Insulin 100% inhibits its activity. So, if you've got insulin resistance and your insulin's always high, you're not burning any fat. Even if you're in a calorie deficit, you're not burning shit, mate. You're literally not going to lose any fat. Alright? So this is the reason why I'm so aggressive with my message, because this is so important. It's not addressed. This is the actual scientific reasoning behind why there's still fucking billions of people who are obese, overweight, unhealthy. There's people who try calorie deficit diets and they do not make any fucking progress. This is why it doesn't work. So, I can probably go on forever here. I don't want to waste all of your time. If you have more time, you can watch other videos. I've addressed more science, more stuff to do with fat loss and stuff. And I've also released a school community where I can coach you. You can interact with other people who are trying to lose body fat. And yeah, and I've also got a course in that school community, so you can learn the full, everything that I know about losing fat and how to do it within a few months. So I'm going to end the video now, because it's 25 minutes long now. So yeah, anyway. Hopefully that answers your question as to why you're always fucking hungry and you're never full, no matter what. That's the reason you have leptin resistance, because of insulin resistance, because you've accumulated too much seed oats, essentially. All right. So, thank you for watching. See you next time, bro.